Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Andrew A.J. Johnson's experience in the media industry.
Okay.
He recently put out a YouTube video called My Experience in Media, an update, and it's really kind of sparked a lot of conversation online.
Yeah.
And we wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit and see what insights we can kind of uncover together.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Johnson's video, it goes beyond just like complaining about a bad job or, kind of griping.
Yeah,
It feels like he's really calling out what he sees as like systemic issues within the industry itself,
right.
things that create a really toxic environment.
Exactly. And he doesn't hold back. He describes the media industry as like mean, cruel, cutthroat, and non-compassionate.
Yeah.
And what really struck me was his point about how these problems seem to disproportionately affect people from like marginalized communities.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, if you think about how the media industry often operates, it's all about who, you know,
Yeah.
who's in your network. And historically, those networks have been very exclusive,
Yeah.
favoring certain demographics over others. And so if you're already facing barriers to entry, navigating that kind of cutthroat culture that he's describing can be even more challenging.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, Johnson actually made a similar video about a year ago where he was sharing some of his negative experiences.
Right.
But instead of it sparking a dialogue about change, he faced kind of a backlash.
Yeah, he describes being unfollowed, unfriended, even blocked by people he thought were part of his network.
Wow.
It's almost as if speaking out broke some unspoken rule.
It's heartbreaking to hear him talk about the lack of support from former colleagues, even just a simple, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
It really highlights the pressure to conform in such a high-stakes environment.
Mm-hmm.
But Johnson doesn't just point fingers. He also talks about the psychological and emotional toll his experiences took on him.
Yeah.
He even uses the term psychological injury.
Right.
What do you think he means by that?
I think what's powerful about that phrase is that it acknowledges the real trauma that can occur in toxic work environment,
Yeah,
It's not just about hurt feelings.
right.
It's about a deep sense of betrayal, a loss of trust, and the ongoing stress of feeling unsafe and undervalued. And those experiences can have lasting impacts on mental and emotional well-being.
And that's a really important point. And he specifically calls out this feeling of being undervalued, describing himself as feeling like a dishwasher and janitor.
Hmm.
Despite his creative talents.
Right.
I'm curious, how does the structure of the media industry itself contribute to this feeling of being disposable?
Well, one factor is the intense focus on ratings and clicks.
Yeah,
This creates a constant pressure to produce content that grabs attention, often at the expense of quality or ethical considerations.
right.
And that pressure trickles down to everyone involved in the production process,
Yeah,
creating a sense of urgency and competition that can leave individuals feeling like cogs in a machine
right.
rather than valued contributors.
So in a way, the very system that's supposed to be about storytelling and connecting with audiences ends up dehumanizing the people who create it. It's
Exactly.
almost ironic.
And I think that irony is at the heart of Johnson's critique. He's not just complaining about individual bad actors, he's calling out a system that incentivizes certain behaviors,
Yeah.
even if those behaviors are harmful.
And he's very clear that this isn't just about his personal experience.
Right.
He believes the media often prioritizes profit and sensationalism over genuine human connection and ethical storytelling. He even says that many media professionals lack sincerity ethics and morals.
Wow.
It's a pretty harsh assessment.
It is, but I think it comes from a place of deep disillusionment. He entered the industry with a lot of passion and idealism, and what he encountered was a system that seemed to reward cynicism and cutthroat tactics.
Yeah,
So his critique is a way of trying to make sense of that disconnect,
right.
of trying to understand how an industry that's supposed to be about truth and storytelling can end up feeling so inauthentic.
And he even uses this powerful phrase, "they don't show up,"
Yeah.
to describe the lack of genuine connection and support he experienced. It seems like he's pointing to a deeper problem within the media industry, a lack of empathy and accountability.
Right, and that lack of empathy can manifest in different ways.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could be the way stories are framed, the voices that are amplified or silenced, or the way individuals within the industry are treated.
Right.
It's about a disconnect between the stated values of the media, often centered around giving voice to the voiceless, holding power to account,
Yeah.
and the lived reality of those working within it.
And Johnson doesn't stop at critique. He actually proposes solutions.
Yeah.
He talks about sensitivity, training, diversity education, and a focus on mental health. Do you think these solutions are realistic? Could they actually shift the culture of the media industry?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
It's important to acknowledge that systemic change is complex and doesn't happen overnight. But what's encouraging is that Johnson's call for change resonates with conversations happening in other industries as well. People are becoming more aware of the impact of work cultures on individual well-being and are demanding greater accountability.
Okay, so let's pause here for now. You've given us a lot to think about already. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into Andrew A.J. Johnson's experience and explore his vision for a better media landscape. Welcome back to our deep dive into Andrew A.J. Johnson's experience in the media industry. Before the break, we were discussing his critique of the industry's culture and the toll it took on his well-being. But Johnson doesn't just dwell on the negative. He also offers some potential solutions.
Right.
He talks about sensitivity training, diversity education, and even shifting the focus of media towards well-being stories.
Yeah.
What do you think could these ideas actually make a difference?
Well, it's certainly a tall order to change the culture of an entire industry.
Yeah.
But I do think Johnson's suggestions are worth considering because they get at the heart of the problem. A lack of empathy and a disconnect from the human impact of the work.
You're right. He's not just talking about, like, tweaking the system around the edges.
Right.
He's calling for, like, a fundamental shift in values. Let's take sensitivity training, for example.
Yeah.
How could that actually play out in a media environment that's so fast-paced and competitive?
Well, it would require a real commitment from a leadership to create a space where people feel safe speaking up about their experiences and concerns.
Right.
It's not just about checking a box, it's about fostering a culture of respect and understanding, and that takes time and effort.
And it also raises the question of who gets to define what's considered sensitive or offensive.
Oh, absolutely.
And such a diverse industry, wouldn't that be a minefield to navigate?
Absolutely. And that's why diversity education is so crucial.
Okay.
It's not just about representation. It's
Yeah.
about understanding different perspective and experiences. It's about creating a space where those conversations can happen respectfully and constructively.
I could see how those two ideas go hand in hand.
Yeah,
You need both the sensitivity and the awareness of diverse viewpoints to actually create a more inclusive and ethical environment.
right.
But what about his idea of focusing on well-being stories? What do you think he means by that, and how would that look in practice?
I think what he's getting at is a shift away from the constant focus on negativity and sensationalism that often dominates the media landscape.
Right.
What if instead of always chasing the next outrage or scandal, media outlets dedicated more time and resources to stories that highlight resilience, hope, and the positive aspects of human experience?
It's a compelling idea, but wouldn't that be a hard sell in an industry that's driven by ratings and clicks?
Yeah.
Wouldn't those feel-good stories be seen as less engaging, less marketable?
It's true that there's a perception that audiences are drawn to conflict and drama.
Right.
But I think there's also a growing appetite for stories that inspire and uplift, that remind us of our shared humanity. And there's evidence to support that we've seen the success of documentaries and podcasts that focus on personal growth, mindfulness, and social impact.
That's a good point. Maybe there's a way to find that balance, to tell stories that are both engaging and meaningful,
Yeah.
that inform and inspire without resorting to sensationalism or exploitation.
Right.
But even if those changes were implemented, wouldn't there still be inherent challenges in an industry that's so fast-paced and demanding?
Of course, and I think Johnson acknowledges that he talks about the media industry feeling like a pressure cooker where the constant deadlines and competition can take a toll on people's mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And he's not alone in that sentiment.
You're right. We've seen a growing number of journalists and media professionals speaking out about burnout stress and the challenges of maintaining ethical standards in a high-pressure environment. It seems like the very structure of the industry contributes to the problems Johnson is describing.
And that's where his call for greater awareness around mental health becomes so crucial.
Okay.
It's not enough to just offer individual solutions like therapy or time off.
Yeah.
It requires a systemic shift that recognizes the inherent pressures of the industry and prioritizes the well-being of those working within it.
That's a big ask, but I think it's essential if we want to see real change. After all, the media plays such a powerful role in shaping our perceptions of the world, and it's important that the people creating it are supported and empowered to do so ethically and sustainably.
Exactly. And that's what makes Johnson's story so relevant. It's not just about one person's experience. It's about a larger conversation we need to be having about the human cost of creative work, the ethical responsibilities of media, and the importance of individual well-being in a demanding and ever-evolving industry.
And it's a conversation that's not limited to the media industry,
Right.
We're seeing similar concerns being raised in other creative fields, music, the arts, even tech. There's a growing awareness of the potential for exploitation and the need to prioritize well-being alongside ambition and success.
That's a great point. Johnson's experience resonates because it speaks to a broader trend of people questioning the traditional models of work and demanding more from the systems they're a part of.
So it's not just about fixing the media industry, it's about rethinking our relationship with work itself.
Right.
What does it mean to pursue our passions in a way that's both fulfilling and sustainable?
Yeah.
How do we create systems that value both productivity and well-being?
These are complex questions, and there are no easy answers,
Yeah.
but I think Johnson's story gives us a starting point for that conversation.
Okay.
He's challenging us to look beyond the surface, to acknowledge the human cost of our systems, and to imagine a future where success isn't defined by sacrificing our well-being.
You've given us a lot to consider. Let's take a quick break to gather our thoughts, and when we come back, we'll delve into Johnson's personal journey of healing and resilience, and what it might mean for all of us as we navigate our own creative paths. Welcome back to our deep dive into the experiences of Andrew A.J. Johnson and his insighting into the media landscape. We've talked about the tough realities he faced, the systemic issues he points out, and his vision for a better industry. But I'm really struck by how, even after everything, Johnson doesn't come across as bitter or defeated.
Yeah.
He seems to have found a way to reclaim his passion on his own terms.
Yeah, what I think is inspiring is that he doesn't advocate for complete disengagement from the media world.
Right.
He still encourages people to consume media, but to do so mindfully and critically.
Yeah, that resonates with me. It's like he's saying, don't let the bad apples spoil the whole bunch.
Right.
There's still value in storytelling and staying informed, but we need to be savvy about it.
He even compares it to making conscious choices in other areas of life.
Yeah,
Like opting for fair trade coffee or sustainably sourced clothing.
right.
It's about aligning your media consumption with your values, understanding the potential biases and agendas at play.
It makes you realize that consuming media isn't a passive activity.
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with information, opinions, and narratives, and it's easy to get swept up in it all without really questioning what we're taking in.
Absolutely.
So how can we as individuals cultivate that kind of critical awareness?
Well, one approach is to diversify your media diet.
Yeah.
Don't just rely on a single source or perspective. Seek out alternative viewpoints, even those you might initially disagree with.
Right.
It's about engaging actively rather than passively.
Okay.
Asking questions like, who created this content? What's their agenda? What voices are missing from this narrative?
It reminds me of Johnson's own approach. He mentions watching a wide range of content himself.
Yeah.
Not to endorse it all,
Right.
but to understand the motivations and tactics behind different narratives. It's like he's using his experience to become a more informed and discerning media consumer.
And that, I think, is a key takeaway for all of us.
Yeah.
We can choose to let negative experiences make us cynical, or we can use them as fuel for growth and change.
Right.
Johnson's story shows that even in the face of systemic challenges, individual agency and resilience can be powerful forces for good.
It also highlights the importance of support systems outside of the industry. He talks about relying on his family and close friends,
Yeah.
those who see him for who he is, not just his professional successes or failures.
That speaks to the importance of nurturing those genuine connections,
Right.
those who remind us of our worth regardless of our career path, especially in a field like media, which can be so image-driven and competitive. Having that grounding can be crucial.
He's very open about still being on a healing journey, acknowledging that this isn't a story with a neat and tidy ending. What do you think his experience tells us about the process of healing from trauma and exploitation?
It reminds us that healing takes time and that it's not linear. There will be good days and bad days. And sometimes the biggest challenge is simply choosing to show up for yourself,
Right.
to prioritize your well-being, even when the world around you feels chaotic and unsupportive.
And perhaps one of the most powerful aspects of his story is his emphasis on forgiveness. He says he forgives those who wronged him,
Right.
but because holding on to that anger was hurting him more than anyone else.
That's such a profound act of self-care.
Yeah,
To let go of the resentment, not to condone the actions, but to free himself from carrying that negativity. Forgiveness, in this sense, isn't about the other person. It's about reclaiming your own peace of mind.
his story leaves us with a lot to think about.
It does.
It challenges us to examine our relationship with the media we consume, to advocate for greater awareness of mental health and ethical practices within creative industries, and to support those who have been marginalized or exploited.
Absolutely.
And on a personal level, it reminds us that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to choose how we respond, to find healing and meaning in our experiences, and to use our voices to create a more just and humane world. Johnson's journey is a powerful reminder that even when systems fail us, individual resilience can pave the way for a brighter future.